Hey everyone, I'm Casey Hollins, and you're watching the Sportsnet Digital Dose. I've got a special guest in studio today, Jim Lang from Sportsnet 590 The Fan, and we're talking about the NFL Combine, which kicked off yesterday. And it's not necessarily something that people think is a big event, but it's definitely got a growing following here, and it's all televised, and it's basically days and hours of guys running and jumping and being fit tested and things like that. But it's kind of fascinating, and there's a lot of stories that come out of it.
And there's a science to it as well, Casey. I think every team has their own theory and formula of what they're trying to get out of the combine from a particular athlete. For instance, let's take Geno Smith, who's a quarterback who a lot of people think is going to go high in the draft, could be a first-round pick. Well, any team that's interested in taking a quarterback or Geno Smith would look at different things. Now, they may not necessarily care how much he can bench press or his vertical jump, but they're looking at him, what he does in agility drills, what his 40 time is, how quick and fast he is, and more importantly, how he would interview. Because there's three phases to the combine, the way it's structured as it is. You have the physical testing, which is the bench press test, the vertical jump, agility drills, long standing broad jump, things like that. Then you're going to have the field test, and they'll ask the quarterback to throw a deep out, a crossing pattern, a variety of different passes to see what his arm strength is like. They'll do an aptitude test. It's called the Wonderlic test. It's on a base of 50, and it's almost like something you would get in university or college, and it's really understanding their analytical abilities and how they process information and how they can solve problems. And they do a one-on-one interview. So I guess actually 4 phases, to be honest with you. So, and if it's a quarterback or if it's a different position, they may want to see how they interact. What would a quarterback like Geno Smith be in a huddle with 10 other men, and how would they lead them? How does he interact with others? How does he treat and respect other people? If you're going to draft a quarterback or any player high in the first round, they're going to receive a big contract, millions of dollars. They're going to be expected to not just make the team, but be a contributor if you're a high draft pick. So how can they handle all of a sudden making money and being that prominent on a professional football team?
It's a lot of pressure for these kids coming out of college. It's not one day, but I mean, it's a few days, and
Yes.
it's, they travel there, and then they just have to hope that everything goes well. I ran track in high school, and I've had a couple races where your time is a lot slower than what you expect it to be because different factors. So it's a lot of pressure for one test and one group of testing for them. But I mean, it needs to happen, I guess. This is how they can see everybody at one time.
Exactly. And Casey, as one NFL executive told me earlier this week, they don't feel a player can go up that much in their eyes with a combine, but they can go down. And that's the issue. And because of that, a lot of the players going into the combine understand what's at stake. So they will spend 4 to 6 weeks leading up to the combine working out with personal trainers, getting really specifically quick and fast and strong for the drills. A power position, if you're a defensive lineman, offensive lineman, obviously you'll be viewed quite a bit on the bench press test. How many reps can you do at 225? And they're not so much interested in your 40 time, but what's in the vertical, the 3-cone drill, in the agility drill, how quick are your feet? How quick do you look in an NFL field? And they'll do field testing. All of this is put in a database by each of the teams. So the personnel people, the coaches and scouts will go over the database. How did the player interview? What is his analytical skills? How did he do in the Wonderlic test? How did he do in the physical testing? And how did he do in the field testing? And then they match that with film they've had in previous scouting reports, and it's all compiled leading up to the draft. Because here's the issue at hand. Free agency starts the 12th of March. So they'll make decisions before free agency saying, I saw player A in the combine, we interviewed him, I think he's exactly what we need. Let's not sign this free agent, let's sign that free agent because I think he'll be available at the draft when it's our turn and we think we can get him and fill the need. So these are all decisions that go on. And once the combine ends, it's endless meetings, cross-checking, and really understanding and trying to hone it down, because as we all do mock drafts, the teams in the NFL do mock drafts as well. They do multiple mock drafts because if you're drafting 5th, say in the first round, and someone throws a curveball and picks a player you didn't expect, there might be somebody on the board you didn't think would be available, Then you're like, well, what do we do? What's our book on him? Do you think he can help the team? And that's part of the thought process going into the combine, is compiling as much information as possible so you can make the best decision possible come the NFL draft.
All the planning kind of starts now at the combine,
Yes.
and then it doesn't stop. All the madness starts now. You mentioned the Wonderlic test, and those results aren't supposed to come out, but they always get leaked every year. And I mean, I don't know how accurate that test could possibly be in determining someone's intelligence. That's not even what it's for. Have you ever tried it?
No, I've never tried it, but here's the thing: it's all taken with a grain of salt.
Yeah.
Now,
not to us though, not to the people consuming the results from the internet. Nobody knows what they see a bad score and they think that guy's an idiot.
If they grade out, say for instance, a defensive back who they thought had a great collegiate career, who tested really well, who ran a great 40 time, had a great vertical jump, and they feel can cover players, if he has a mediocre to poor Wonderlic test, I don't think that's going to be the difference between drafting him and not drafting him. A lot of it is the interview as well. I mean, last year no one really looked at Russell Wilson as the kind of quarterback he was going to be in the NFL. Obviously the Seahawks and Pete Carroll and their organization and their personnel department saw something in Russell Wilson 31 other teams didn't. They interviewed him and they took back to Seattle, thought this kid interviews well, he's mature, he's respectful to others, he's got the work ethic. We think we have something here. Now, even though they signed Matt Flynn as a free agent quarterback, they still thought we're going to draft him in the 3rd round because of homework they did. Now, that was information and homework that they interpreted, other teams didn't. Now, other teams may have thought, well, he might still be there in the 4th or 5th round. They took him in the 3rd round, and he was a reason why they made the playoffs. So that's why it's a very inexact science. Every team feels they have the best methodology of compiling the information and picking the best players at draft time. But as we've seen, some teams are just better at it than others. Some teams have a better knack for finding those diamonds in the rough. Some teams have a real set-in-stone formula. They look for this kind of player, for this height, this weight. They interview this way, the character of them, because they fit into their team concept. So ultimately, for these young men, Casey, it's their job interview. I mean, really, this is their future.
Yeah.
How fast they run, how much they lift, and how they interview and how they test will determine what round they potentially will be drafted in, and that's big money depending on what round you're in.
It is. There's a lot at stake, like any job interview, really, and it's fascinating for us to watch. I at least find it really interesting.
No, it's great stuff.
Yeah, it is good stuff. That's all the time we've got, but thanks so much for coming in, Jim.
No problem.
Jim, sorry, and check back in a little bit for another Sportsnet Digital Dose.